If you see a fat black woman in any role, even if she's the main character, she has to be aggressive, she has to be desperate, she has to be hypersexual. All of the characteristics that Nikki Parker has, it's like you're literally not allowed to just exist as a woman without demonstrating these very stereotypical attributes and qualities. So with Netflix recently getting the rights to so many of our favorite black sitcoms from the 2000s, I have been binging and just reveling in the nostalgia of my childhood. So many of my favorite shows, like literally that's all I watch these days on Netflix, are those like 2000s like UPN sitcoms. So one in particular that I binge all the time, it's one of my favorite shows of all time, like sitcoms of all time, is The Parkers. I want to preface this video by saying I love this show. I think it is just laugh out loud, belly aching, cheeks hurting funny. Like, I love The Parkers. You don't understand. Like, when I was a kid, I can remember it was appointment TV, watching it, the episode with Shaq and the glutes.
Don't forget my glutes. Oh, yeah, you glutes.
And like, I can literally quote the entire episodes of "It's time for Gary and company."
Gary
and company.
What?
It's time for
Gary
and company. I freaking love this show. It is a gem, one of the many gems of my childhood. I freaking love this show, right? But watching it as an adult, I still love the show, but watching it as an adult has been an eye-opening experience to say the least. I didn't want to like bring down a show or like criticize a show that I love and I hold so near and dear to my heart, but if I don't criticize things that I love, then I mean, what's the point? The Parkers is so funny and so amazing, which is why it makes it so sad that they rely on sexism and, you know, fat phobia and all of the above to make the show as a show about a black single mom and her daughter and their friends and just like life. It's just a good show just with that principle alone. So it's like, why do we have to sprinkle in all of these extraneous, just like really negative portrayals of women, particularly fat black women? Like, I don't get it, because the show would be completely amazing without it. When I say fat, I am using this as a descriptive term. Some people might be taken aback. Stop telling fat people, you're not fat, you're just big boned, you're not fat, you're just a little thick. Fat is not an insult. When you treat it as an insult, you're marginalizing fat people more. Stop using fat as a dirty word. It's not a dirty word, it's just a descriptive word. If you're using it in a pejorative sense, obviously then it's bad. So I just want to preface that. So when I say fat, that's what I mean. I would imagine that most of you guys who clicked on this video are familiar with the Parkers, but for those of you guys who are not, the basic plot of the show is Monique plays Nikki Parker, who is a single mom raising her daughter, Kim. So they all go to Santa Monica Community College. It revolves around the lives of Nikki and Kim are like the two main characters, but there's also the supporting characters in Nikki's best friend, Andell, in Kim and her best friends, and also in the professor, Professor Ogilvy, who is a professor of really, I don't even really know what he teaches. Does he teach African American studies? Like, I have no idea what he teaches, but Professor Stanley Ogilvy, right? He is also a part of the main cast, right? Or the supporting cast, whatever. Really, the forefront theme of the show is this unrequited love that Nikki Parker has for Professor Stanley Ogilvy. Now, this man does not like her. He is not interested in her. He spends 5 seasons calling her a kook, a crazy woman, calling her disgusting, just completely just uninterested, literally physically pushing her away and treating her like complete utter trash and chasing after women who are thin, desirable. I want to say I will give them credit because the women, there were darker skinned women, like Kenya Moore played one of Stanley's like girlfriends at a moment, and he did have some women that were darker skinned, so I will give them that. But obviously they were all thin, very, you know, traditionally attractive women that the professor would constantly go for, while Nikki was chasing him psychotically, and I do not mince my words, psychotically chasing him, and he was not interested in her whatsoever and would completely disrespect her and treated her like, again, absolute gutter trash, like absolute trash. He was not interested in her. And again, for 5 seasons, for 5 years, for the entire show, it's like creepy, it's like bordering, it's not even bordering, it is psychotic. She is a fat woman, a fat black woman who literally spends her entire time psychotically chasing after a man who could not be bothered, who is not interested in her whatsoever. So it's like, in the one, you're happy for the representation that this was like the first show, if not the first show ever, the first sitcom ever that had a fat Black woman as the main character, and her best friend was also not as fat as she was, but like fat of size. And you have this fat Black woman as the main character, and her daughter is also fat too. And it's like, oh my gosh, like representation, this is amazing. But it's not really representation, because Nikki is literally the butt of the joke. For the entire show, she is the punchline, she is the joke, she is undesirable, she is chasing after a man that does not like her at all, that's not concerned with her at all. And it's just like, and then what really made me the most angry is the ending of the Parkers. So Nikki finally finds a man, albeit it's a little bit of a rushed relationship, but whatever. She finally finds a man who loves her and accepts her, who adores her, and he proposes marriage to her, right? Finally. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the Parkers. I'm sorry that I just spoiled it for you like 20 years later, but that is indeed how the show ends. Like, Nikki finds a man who loves her, who is thin, who is desirable, who's attractive, who has a job, a career, everything. Great man, total package, right? And he loves her, he proposes to her. And then on their wedding day, the professor finally has this epiphany that he is in love with her and decides that he is going to interrupt her wedding day and profess his love to her again. She has found love. And what does she do? She leaves that man, the man that loves her, that treats her like a queen. She abandons that man because she's like, the professor finally realized his love for me. So on his time, even though I'm happy in my relationship and happy in my life, I'm going to drop everything for a man that has spent 5 years treating me like absolute trash. And I'm just like, this had to be written by men. I hope it was written by men. Like, this had to be written by either men or women who are extremely misogynistic, because she literally moved on with her life and dropped everything, and that was supposed to be a happy ending. Like, we were supposed to be happy as the audience. I do not care if they got together at the end. The messaging that sends, that despite a man treating you terribly, and showing no interest in you and physically pushing you away, emotionally pushing you away, every way pushing you away, if you keep pursuing him when he gets ready on his own time, when he has that revelation, drop everything and be with him instead of moving on with your life. That is the ultimate message at the end. And I'm just like, I love this show so much, and they didn't have to rely on this stupid trope and this stupid, like, it's just so stupid. It just makes me so upset, because it's such a great, well-written show that it did not need that element. Like, she literally dropped everything, and that's supposed to just make everything better, and we got a happy ending. Like, that was not a happy ending. A happy ending would have been Nikki choosing herself and saying, I'm sorry, that I don't care. I finally love myself and I love my life, and I don't have to chase after a man to be happy. And I found a man that I didn't have to chase, that fell in love with me all on his own. And I'm going to say yes to him. I'm going to get married to him, and I'm going to move on with my life. Every sitcom that's led, or TV show that has female lead characters, the series finale, the ending of the show always has to end with marriage. Like, you can't possibly have a happy ending and be happy with your life and be single, right? You have to end with marrying someone. That's the messaging that even shows that I love. Like, think about it. Think about some of your favorite shows and how they end. They always end with the female characters having to have a happy ending in the form of a marriage. Always. Why is that? Why couldn't Nikki just go off on her merry way and just like start a business or do whatever, sell Lady Egyptian, like found her own branch of Lady Egyptian skincare, which is like a skincare company that she worked for? Like, why couldn't that happen? No, it had to end with her being married, because marriage equals happiness for a woman. And despite a man being terrible towards you, at least she got the ring at the end, right? I read this amazing article yesterday from Wear Your Voice magazine. Wear Your Voice magazine, by the way, is a really great publication. It's a great publication for, like, you know, they write a lot about like misogynoir and, you know, fat Blackness, people of color issues. So I definitely recommend that you guys check them out. It's an online magazine. But nevertheless, this article was amazing, and it focused on Kim Parker and a couple other sitcoms and like cartoons, you know, Black cartoons, and this trope, right? The fat Black best friend trope that started. So the Parkers is actually a spin-off of Moesha. It's really funny because in the Parkers, Kim is not actually treated as a fat character. Like, I don't think there was one time that Kim was ever fat shamed on the Parkers, which is very fascinating because compared to, I guess, Nikki and some of the other characters, the other like peripheral characters that were like guest characters, Kim was considered to not be fat. Like, there was never any fat jokes that she was subjected to. In fact, Kim actually demonstrated fat phobia toward other characters that were larger than her, which we'll talk about later, which is very fascinating because literally the entire show, Moesha spent the entire duration of the series like fat shaming her for the entire time. And then when the Parkers came around, it was like Kim was considered to be thin, which is like very interesting to me. But nevertheless, they talked about the fat black best friend trope, that this person literally, in a lot of these sitcoms, the fat black best friend, and really just the fat best friend in general, because I was listening to, and I mentioned this in a previous video, I was listening to Jamila Jamil's podcast where she had Busy Phillips on, who is obviously a white woman who is not fat, she's just average looking. And Busy talked about how she, after a while, realized in Hollywood that she wasn't going to get cast for roles that were the main character because she wasn't skinny, she wasn't thin, so she wasn't going to get cast for those roles anymore. So after she came to that realization, she literally told her agent, only audition me for roles that are I'm playing the best friend, so that I could actually get greenlit, because she needed the money. So it was like she had this awareness of herself that within the industry, if you're a fat woman or you're not a thin woman, she's not even fat, again, she's average size, but if you're not a thin woman, the only thing that you'll ever be is the best friend in the show, right? So there's that. Starting from Moesha, Kim Parker was constantly subjected to fat shaming. There were episodes where they would literally, like, Moesha, who was supposed to be the protagonist, would literally gossip about her and call her fat and make fun of her, and that was like normal. That was normal, totally normal. So it started with Moesha, and then, like I said, by the time that the Parkers came along, Kim was all of a sudden not even considered to be fat anymore. And in fact, there was a season where she was dating this guy who was very fat, very round. She was making fat jokes toward him. She was literally making fat jokes toward him, and even Nikki Parker, who again, the main character who's also fat, was making fat jokes toward him. She didn't want to date him because he was fat and this, that, and the third, and it was like, okay, but Kim is not thin either. I was like, are we not going to address this? Like, it was just really weird that they would like pretend like Kim was like thin, dating a fat. It was weird. So I love the show. I don't want to undermine the show. It's a piece of just really important Black culture, I think personally. But like a lot of the shows, as I've been rewatching a lot of my favorite sitcoms from the 2000s, problematic. We watch these shows as kids, and it's crazy how much of an impact that watching these shows has on us, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And it's crazy to watch it again as an adult and just, whoa, it's like, whoa. But I love the Parkers, despite the fact that I hate that one aspect or those two aspects of the show. I'm not a fan of that. I still think it's a great show, but I implore you to watch it with your eyes wide open and see the messaging that they were trying to send and enjoy it for what it is. But nevertheless, I was just like, I love this show, but that doesn't mean that I can't call out this really harmful, dangerous trope that it perpetuated. So that's essentially all I have to say. Definitely leave your comments down below. What are your thoughts? Have you been binging the Parkers too? Have you noticed this? Have you found this like cringiness like in some of your favorite sitcoms from like the 2000s and the 90s? Because I know that I have. Definitely let me know your comments down below. And until then, I will see you guys next time.